Thursday, August 23rd, 1877. We have been going to the meetings every night and have been getting home so late that I haven't had much time to write in my diary. We haven't missed a meeting yet. We are learning so many wonderful Bible truths. I understand now that God wants us to obey all of His 10 Commandments because we love Him, not because we are afraid of Him. All of these truths are right there in the Bible. The lady hasn't been the only speaker. Sometimes her husband or the other men from their group speak. I like it best when she speaks, though. I understand her better. Every time she speaks, I am amazed by the power and confidence I hear in her voice. We spoke to her tonight after the meeting, and she seems like a different person when she is not behind the pulpit. Her voice was faint, and she seemed so weak. She told the children a story tonight before the meeting started. She told us about how she has been sick many times throughout her life. Even as a child, her health was often fragile. She told us that God has blessed her with a clear, strong speaking voice when she preaches, which shows that her message is from God, since she could never speak like that on her own strength. I wonder if God would do the same thing for me. This is the last weekend for the meetings. Each night the speaker has been making a call at the end of the sermon asking those that would like to be baptized or would like to rededicate their life to God to come forward. Many people have already come forward. I think that Mama and Papa and Johnny will go forward soon. I want to also, but I just seem to be glued to the bench. One reason is that I hate the thought of walking in front of all those people and knowing they are looking at me. Plus, I have that terrible secret I'm hiding, and it seems like a sin that I haven't told someone. I am wondering if I should tell Papa about it and see what he says. Papa cannot lose his job. What would become of us then? Dear God, please show me what to do. Friday, August 24th, 1877. We had a great surprise this morning when the lady preacher and her husband came to visit. They came to encourage us in our walk with God. Then the lady looked at me and said, "Hannah, I would like to speak to you outside, if I may." I didn't even know she knew my name. I meekly followed her outside. She told me that I reminded her of herself when she was young, so shy and quiet. She told me that I shouldn't ever let my shyness stop me from doing the right thing. I thought she was talking about going to the front to be baptized at an altar call. But then she said, "Hannah, I feel impressed to tell you that God is in control. You can trust Him with all your worries and concerns. And remember, never be scared to take a stand for God. He has promised to never leave us or forsake us." That's all she said, and then she gave me a hug and a wink and walked back into the house. Suddenly I knew that my prayers had been answered. God must have somehow let her know that I needed to hear. I just sat there speechless and stunned. I had to trust God in this situation. When our guests were leaving, I smiled a happy smile at my new friend, and she nodded her head ever so slightly and waved. I knew that if God could use her in such a mighty way, then He could definitely take care of this terrible secret I've been keeping. Later in the afternoon, I followed Papa out to the barn. I was anxious to get my secret out, especially now that I knew that God had everything under control. I told Papa that I needed to talk to him privately, and he said that we could talk as he milked. I asked where Mr. Jones was since I hadn't seen him all day. Papa said Mr. Jones had been feeling poorly that day and wouldn't be coming out to the barn to check on things. I still glanced around just to make sure. Johnny was on the other side of the barn, so he couldn't hear us talking either. I told Papa all about what I had seen on the 4th of July at the Parsons' house. He gave me a big hug and said he was sorry I had been so scared. Papa squeezed me so tight that for a second I almost couldn't breathe. When he released me from his embrace, he told me not to worry, but he said that we needed to go into town as soon as possible to talk to the sheriff. He told Johnny to finish the milking and take care of the calves, and that Mama would help with the bottling the milk. Johnny groaned, but Papa gave him a look that silenced him pretty quickly. Johnny looked at me with questioning eyes, but I just shook my head no. So Papa and I went into town as quickly as we could. Papa told the sheriff all that I had told him, and the sheriff was not surprised at all to hear that Mr. Jones would do something like this. Then we all walked over to the Parsons' house to talk to Mrs. Parsons. The sheriff told her why we were there, and her hand flew to her throat, and she said, "Oh my!" I thought she was going to faint for a second, but she didn't. Mrs. Parsons went to get her black purse in the cabinet. She looked at it, and it was empty, just like I knew it would be. The sheriff wanted me to tell him everything I had seen that awful day. The weight that I lifted from my shoulders when I first told Papa the story came back for a moment. I didn't want to have to repeat the whole thing again, and certainly not to a man who was a stranger to me. But I remembered the words the lady preacher had said, so I took a deep breath and retold the whole awful scene. He wrote it all down on a pad of paper and told us that we could go. We went home, and Mama had supper waiting for us. Papa and I told Mama and Johnny all that had happened. After she held me tight for a moment, she said she had gone to check on Mr. Jones earlier in the day, since Papa had said he wasn't feeling well. When she knocked on his door, there was no answer, and then she noticed his horse was gone too. I guess Mr. Jones knew the truth would come out sooner or later, and he had better get out of town quickly. Papa said he didn't know what the future held, but we were to trust God. We were going to the meeting tonight, and I cannot tell you how relieved I feel to have my secret out. Even though not everything is resolved, I have learned a lesson today about trusting in God. I will write more tonight.